I'm pretty excited about this offseason. It's probably the first time I've said it. As much because there's going to need to be some turnover in certain areas, but we're going to have some flexibility just because we had a set roster coming into the year, whether it was guys were coming back, guys were under contract. As much as it seems like we've got some looming free agents, and we do, or some guys with options, and those decisions need to be made, there's also an opportunity to add some players and to have some turnover. And with some guys that I think are going to continue to take a step forward, it can be really exciting.
Do you expect to have the same payroll or an increased payroll next year?
That's something that once the season's over, really my calendar is, obviously we'll get through today. Staff will travel and so on. At some point I'll get with Gibby here during the week. I always give it a few days, but we'll get together during the week, talk about the staff first and foremost, as we always, that's very important to me, to get those things resolved out of fairness to them. And also at the same time sit down with Paul and talk about things. And even though we talk daily, once the season's over, there's just a little more clarity, I guess, and that's when we'll sit down and we'll talk about payrolls, things like that, staff, players. We've obviously delved into off-season meetings already at this point, whether it's potential trade targets. We know who the free agents are going to be. But also the month of October, we'll be talking to a lot of other GMs and getting a sense of who might be available. So we know the free agents that are out there. I have a sense of some of the players that could be available in trade. But once you get to the offseason, I expect a whole other group of players to be available. And that gets done in the month of October. At some point, we'll come up with where the payroll is going to be, all that kind of stuff. But I expect us to continue to try to build and add and put a World Series team on the field.
Alex, regarding payroll, without going into the specifics of what it might be, do you think that you'll plan next year to leave some flexibility in it going into the year, so there isn't a situation like the Irvin Santana situation, or that you have some flexibility at the deadline to add? That if you give yourself that flexibility, is that something that's you're thinking about?
Yeah, I think there's always flexibility in season, the sense of it all depends where you're at in the season, who's available, right player. I think I said this at the trade deadline as well. I know a lot's been made of it. It's been written about, talked about. But we always have the ability to have the conversation. That said, you always look at that and you consider that in the off season. But I don't know that you ever go into the off season and spend just for the sake of spending. It's not like I don't think of an analogy, but we need to spend X amount of dollars by spring training. It should be based on the player. And even though you'd like to be in an area, if you don't find the right deals or the right free agents to sign, you're not just going to go sign somebody that you don't believe in. I mean, ultimately. So I think that kind of takes care of itself. And I'm not trying to be vague with this, but we don't go into a season and say, well, we started spring training at this number. There are no discussions. There are no conversations. It's not that black and white. It's not that rigid, I guess I would say. We always have the conversation and can.